Very good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards. It's my privilege to chair the Central and South Planning Committee. Very slight delay in starting the meeting because we just had a technical issue to get us online. This meeting is being recorded for YouTube and can be followed online. So anybody who is following us online, good evening and welcome. For members of the public in the gallery, the camera is facing this way from the dome above you, so you're not actually on it until such time, or should you come forward and address the committee. Okay, a couple of the normal announcements before we get into the business. Fire alarms, we're not expecting one at all. If it does sound, we will be evacuating the building, and the best way out is through the double doors and off slightly to the left-hand side double doors and then down the spiral staircase. We will all be going together, so don't worry, we will escort you out. But if for whatever reason those doors are blocked, there are fire exits behind us, so don't worry about them. Mobile phones. Could I please ask that everybody's mobile phone and iPads are switched to silent or turned off? And residents' feedback forms and forms for anybody who may be following us online and wish to provide comments are available. We do encourage you to do that. It does help us improve our meetings. Okay, before we get into the agenda proper, I will just talk a little bit about how the meeting is run. Planning committees, although we meet in public, and members of the public are very welcome to join us and watch what goes on, they're not public meetings such that there are no speaking rights other than those described in the Constitution of the Council, which means a petitioner, an agent in response to a petition, and ward councillors. Other than that, I cannot accept comment from the floor. Decision making. A lot of people around the table. You may wonder who they are and what they do, and I will describe them. The committee voting members are the councillors, and I will introduce them to you. On my far right-hand side, Councillor Chapman, and then Councillor Brightman, Councillor Ahmed Balan, Councillor Lavery, excuse me, Councillor Yarrow. I'm too busy in the first names bit, which is not helpful. Councillor Dillon, Councillor Duncan, and Councillor Birra. They are the voting members, and it's only in the event of a tie that I, as chair, will exercise a vote. We are supported by officers. On my far right-hand side, we have Mr. Akram, who is our highways engineer. Mr. Harani is our planning team leader and will be presenting the planning applications. Mr. Rogers, head of planning, gives expert advice. Ms. Teji is Democratic Services and will be minuting the meeting. And Ms. Munro is the planning lawyer. So that's everybody around the table. Okay, then we have a very small little bit of a process to go through, and it won't take very long, I assure you. Apologies for absence. Let's do it this way.
Apologies from Councillor Chamdal with Councillor Lavery substituted.
Thank you very much. Thank you for standing in, Councillor Lavery. Declarations of interest matters coming for the meeting. Are there any additional? No, thank you. Oh.
Item 7, the resident rejected my vote and spoke to me, so I declare interest on this one, and I will be not voting on it, but I'll remain it.
Okay. You're not voting?
No, I won't be voting on this one.
Then if you do not feel you can exercise a vote, I believe I need to encourage you to leave the room so that you don't influence debate through unintentionally, through expression or what have you. Okay, thank you very much. Sign and receive the minutes of the previous meeting. They're in the pack, colleagues. Are they agreed? Thank you very much. No matters have been notified in advance or urgent. And item 5, this is about part 1 and part 2 of the meeting. Part 1 are the planning applications that, as I said, we discuss in public. Part 2 are matters of enforcement, which we discuss in private. And we discuss those because it is not in the public interest for us to be having open discussion about enforcement issues that could ultimately result in prosecutions or court appearances. So we do break between part 1 and part 2, and we ask members of the public to leave the room, and we do break the CCTV link to YouTube. But as I say, there are those two parts, and we will be very clear when we move into part 2. So we're now getting into the agenda item proper. We're applications with a petition, agenda item number 6, 40 Barnhill Road.
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to 40 Barnhill Road, which is a two-storey semi-detached property. The property has been extended and amended quite considerably with a gable end roof and a large box dormer to the rear. The proposal before you is for a two-storey side and part first floor rear extension in the main. It is the subject of 2 letters, a petition and a letter from the local MP, and the consultation replies are set out on page 8 of the agenda. As members will know, the Council has a supplementary planning document relating to residential extensions, and within that set out a number of standards which are required to be met for extensions. These include for two-storey side extensions, setting in from the side boundary, setting back on semi-detached properties from the main rear front wall of the property, and in terms of its design, matching the roof and so on. In this particular case, the extensions fail to meet any of those standards. It's not set back from the front on the ground floor. In fact, it comes forward of the front wall, and it's not set in from the boundary at all. There is also standards set out for amenity space provision, which means, or which are set out so that the site doesn't result in an overdevelopment, and in this particular case, the additional extensions and the additional bedrooms that are being provided results in the amenity space not meeting the council standards by a substantial amount. And so for 3 reasons that are set out, we are recommending refusal. If I just show the plans. These are the existing plans. As I say, the property has been amended quite considerably. As you will see, the ground floor does come forward of the main wall, in fact is forward of the bay window, and the first floor is set on the boundary. That's the existing and proposed elevations. The fact that the extension is quite wide to the rear results in the double hip that you see, which also we feel is not in character. This is the existing property. The works that have been carried out to the roof have been done under permitted development. This is on the other side of the road. And this is, again, the existing property. The adjoining property to the side, the garden, and then there's views further along the road. So we have allowed rear extensions, but not of the width that's being proposed. And that's the back of the property. And that's the adjoining property. If I can just refer members to the addendum sheet, we did have a communication from the adjoining occupier just clarifying an issue regarding the kitchen window to the side. It is stated in the members, or in the report that members have, that it is obscure glazed. In fact, the kitchen window to the side is clear glazed, and the door is obscure glazed. However, this doesn't raise any additional issues. There is a window to the rear which serves the kitchen as well, so it doesn't raise any additional issues or result in additional reasons for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rani. My understanding is that the lead petitioner here, Ms. Hallinan, has asked for Councillor Hillingdon to speak on her behalf. Is that correct?
Yes, I was going to speak on my own behalf as well, but I'll do the both together if that's all right.
If I may be clear, that you would have 5 minutes to speak as the petitioner and not an additional 3 minutes. So
I'm sure you're getting the point.
well, I'm sorry I have done that then. So as speaking on behalf of the petitioner, we give you 5 minutes speaking time. The red light, when it appears, I must bring you to a close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I support the objection of the petitioners. This is clearly, as has already been demonstrated, a considerable overdevelopment. It's really completely out of character with the rest of the road. At that end of the road, they're all semi-detached, and this is just effectively producing a huge block of one big property. It's overlooking the next door properties as well. And that's really all I need to say. I don't think there's a great deal more I can add to that. So it's very brief.
I'm very grateful. Colleagues, any questions at all? Clarification? That doesn't surprise me. I'm very, very grateful for you coming and addressing us. I do have to ask if the Asian applicant is present, wishes to speak. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but no, fine, thank you very much. In the absence of that, then let's just open this for discussion. Councillor Lavery.
I think the discussion can be pretty short. The officer recommendation is clear, the officer report is clear. It's clearly an inappropriate development and clearly doesn't match anything that's up there already, so I would have no hesitation in moving the officer recommendations.
Thank you. Before I second that one, can I just throw a little bit in there, and that is about whether or not the refusal reasons are strong enough. It was only on reading as we were going through this again that the comment is made about the double pitch roof and it being completely out of character with the rest of the street. However, condition 2 seems that all of that character bit is as a consequence of it not appearing subordinate. Now, if it did appear subordinate at the front, I think the roof design would still not be acceptable. And I wonder whether or not this wording is strong or clear enough.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the subordinate also refers to the width of the rear extension, and the width of the rear extension is the reason why we have the double hip. So I'm not sure whether that's clear in the report, but it does. The subordination is to do with the width of the rear extension as well as the fact that it's not set back from the front.
Okay, if officers believe that's fine, that's fine. Thank you very much. You were about to come in?
Yes, thank you. On that point, I think, as Mr. Harani has said, it says the proposed Part 2 story, etc., and it says it includes width in that refusal, including the lack of a setback. So it doesn't say just because of the setback. So it does refer to the width. So I personally feel happy with that. And I was going to second Councillor Lavery's...
Excellent. So it's been proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands on that one, please? Is everybody? It's refused. Thank you. Turn to agenda item 7, number 16, Chatsworth Road. Mr. Harani.
Thank you, Chairman. 16 Chatsworth Road is a corner site. Members will note from the history that there's been a number of applications previously, and on page 21 you'll see that an application in 2013 was approved for a 2-storey 3-bed attached dwelling following an appeal. The proposed extensions to this property are very similar to that 3-bed property that was approved in 2013. So in terms of the size and scale of the development and the space that it leaves to the side, your officers feel that a refusal on that basis would not be supported at appeal. And again, there is a considerable amount of space that is being left to the side. So again, your officers consider the extensions to be acceptable. In terms of the conversion, you have 4 flats being proposed. All of the flats meet the council standards and the national standards in terms of the size and their layout, and the windows and positions and so on. They also meet the council's standards in terms of parking, and there is a TPO tree on the site, and that is protected as well. So with it meeting all of the council standards and so on, your officers feel that an application, or they can support this application and is recommended for approval. If I can just go through the plans, you'll see that it doesn't extend beyond the rear of the existing property, so in terms of its scale, it's in proportion. These are the existing elevations and the proposed. And again, this is in a terrace of 3, so its extension isn't going to create a terrace out of a semi or a... These are the existing, that's the existing property, and the land to the side is part of the site as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Colleagues. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that there is a large piece of land here. It meets all our requirements. Yes, they've been through, other applications. It looks like they've now got it right. They're keeping the tree, meets all our standards, and I would move officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Labour.
I'm going to be happy to second in a moment. I've just got a couple of queries, if I might. Condition 4, we've got cycle storage, which is slightly more casual than we normally have, in the sense we normally have the number that we are seeking, unless it's absolutely clear from the plan. And I did the plans online, so I couldn't absolutely see whether it was. It just says cycle storage.
Thank you.
The number might be useful.
We can amend that to put 4 cycles.
Thank you. And the other one was, I know the parking allocation condition is what we tend to use, particularly on larger developments, but a parking allocation scheme, when we've only got 4, surely can't we say 1 per flat and specify it out now and save the trouble? Good point.
Sounds very sensible.
Well, I just thought I'd try and be sensible.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else object?
Well, no. Okay. Councillor Duncan.
Let's specify the car parking for different flats on the plan. And the cycle store is also shown of a size capable of taking the number we need.
Yeah, no, I'm happy it is. It says residential unit, condition 6 says an allocation scheme's got to be devised. Well,
it does say that, but it's the plans we approve which says car park flat 1, car park flat 2, 3 and 4. So
I think we're agreeing the same thing, and I think simplifying that condition will be helpful and certainly will help the applicant.
Just to say, as shown on the approved plan.
Could we add an informative that the amenity space means that it should be amenity space and not an obstacle course as shown in the pictures?
Thank you. Thank you for that. I don't know that it would be appropriate at the time. This is a development site and not necessarily amenity site at the moment, and I think it might be a stretch to read one into t'other. Okay, so are you formally...
I will formally second you.
Okay, so colleagues, formally proposed and seconded, subject to amendment of condition 4 to state 4 cycle storage, and the amendation of condition 6 to 1 parking space per flat, delegated to the head of planning to resolve that wording. Is that agreed? Thank you very much, everybody. Agenda item 8, Brunel University. We'll just hang on a second for Councillor Beer's return.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for a temporary marquee between July and September each year in order to support in the main things like the graduation ceremonies and so on that take place. The only issue that officers raised was the fact that one of the ground floor residential units in the halls of residence was being obscured by the marquee, but given the dates that are being proposed, It's very early within the academic year that the marquee comes down, so that residential unit will be available for use after about 2 weeks of the academic year. So other than that, your officers consider that this is well within the site, although the site is in the greenbelt. It has no impact on the greenbelt, and your officers consider it acceptable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you. Officer's recommendation.
Councillor Ahmed-Wilana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, hold on. Councillor Duncan, if they have I believe he would be seconding. That's presumptuous of me, but I got that impression.
Yeah, but I will say something.
Please say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. So it's a decent application to erect a temporary marquee to hold summer academic events. And of course, I've seen that no significant impact on the green belt as is stated in the officer recommendation. So I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, before you're okay. You don't wish to sign it. Okay. Formally proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands on this one, please? That's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 9, 53 Pentworth Gardens.
Thank you, Chairman. This was deferred from a committee quite a long time ago, and the reason it's taken so long is getting the revised or accurate drawings has been a difficult task, shall we say, from the applicants. So we have finally received these drawings, and they do comply with the council standards now. It was originally recommended for refusal. It is now back with you for approval. The parking standards are met, and the size of the units that are being proposed comply with the national standards. So we're saying that it is acceptable. Having looked through the conditions and so on, I have recommended in the addendum sheet an amendment to condition 3, but having read that as well, I think that it probably can be strengthened in terms of the details of the crossover that are being required, so that we don't get a very large crossover across the front of the property, and subject to you delegating the strengthening of that condition to the head of planning, we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
If I can just further clarify, the significance of this is we may be looking at the existing crossover arrangements to be altered, so we need to say things like notwithstanding the submitted plans. So there was a little more work required on that condition, Chairman, hence the request for delegated authority.
Thank you very much. Could you just show the plan of the parking? That is the point at issue here, just so that we are all familiar with that. Okay, and for clarification, the Highways Officer has raised objection to the idea of a double and a single being co-located, and what we're going to do through this wording is to remove the single so that the rear parking space is accessed through one of the front, but as there's only 2 flats, they will have to come to an arrangement amongst themselves who's allocated that second space. But it is not, the Highways Officer doesn't support a triple drop curb across the front of the property. Okay, Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll move the officer's recommendations on the proviso that on page 50 there's a typo error on the second paragraph from the bottom where it says the application proposes 2 car parking spaces, and then further down it says 3 car parking spaces, and I know it's 3. We really ought to correct the 2.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Duncan?
I just wanted to query the parking arrangements, because on the existing arrangement you've got 1 car parking behind another, so that you may have to back out depending on how they're allocated. Here you've got 2 at the front, which again contributes to this 3-car width crossover, but also it means that it's going to be very close to the ground floor unit, and light, noise late at night, if you've got the other unit parking close to people there, one of which is a bedroom, we need to consider that, I think.
I think if the one that is facing the sort of habitable rooms of the ground floor unit is allocated to the ground floor unit, then you would overcome that. So we could add that within the or it is an allocation scheme is requested under condition 2, but we can insist that that parking space is allocated to the ground floor unit.
Thank you. That's useful. But if we're thinking of only having 2 vehicle crossover points, one will be one of these parking spaces facing the kitchen, diner, living room, as shown on the ground floor plan, then that means that there will be 2 cars at the side again, won't there? If we don't have 3 car width. And the ground floor bedroom unit, one of the bedroom units on the ground floor, the only window to it is in the side. So that would give on to where this second car is coming, which can't be its own because it's then blocking in the person in the flat upstairs. So there's a bit of sorting out, really, I think, to do with the cars and the window, if you like, the amenity issue.
Thank you. I accept my reading of the report, my recollection of the report is that the highways officer is recommending that the existing single drop curb, which effectively serves the sideway, is blocked up, and only the double curb across the front that's serving the 2 front spaces is in existence, and the sideway would be accessed through the right-hand parking bay, would be my assumption. Okay. Are we right on this one, Mr. Akram?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you are correct in that statement.
Thank you very much. The present side single drop curb that serves the sideway has been blocked up. A new dropped curb that serves the 2 front parking spaces will be opened up, and the parking space that's presently down the side of the house will be accessed through what looks like on the right-hand car space there. So whoever's allocated that side of the parking gets 2 parking spaces and will have to sort themselves out, and whoever is allocated the left-hand side gets 1 parking space. And the observation you have made would suggest that the 1 parking space is allocated to the ground floor space, and the 2 parking spaces allocated to the upstairs. Now, I accept that we're not going to overcome that window bit.
What's happening then is this one.
No, you see 3 cars there at the moment.
I do.
The one that's at the top
Yeah.
accesses that space through the existing, where that car is parked on the right hand side. There's a double curb, and those 2 have to sort themselves out.
So that does that.
Yep. There doesn't seem to be any way of overcoming it other than to reduce this down to 2 parking spaces, and there we have a balance here then, haven't we, of
That's more parking.
sometimes. Councillor Lavery.
Just a quick question. The other it is in the conditions, but are officers satisfied that we can achieve 25% soft landscaping on these plans? Because it's not a very big front garden and there's an awful lot of space needed for cars, so are we satisfied that it realistically can be met?
The plans actually do indicate that 25% is met in terms of the area that's the main area is behind Councillor Duncan's head. So in terms of the landscaping, so we are satisfied that the 25% can be met. If I could clarify just the parking situation, if I can refer members to the Highways Officer's comments on page 48, where he does say an alternative arrangement would be to remove the existing crossover and provide a new one. and he does say that this would reduce the number of usable spaces to 2, which he says is acceptable in this situation. So we would have 1 space per unit.
That may be the case, but regardless, it will achieve the same outcome. I would imagine anybody would use that hard standing to park cars on, whether or not we approve it or otherwise. The important bit is that we don't have a triple across the front, and that's what we're stopping. But we're also providing, if we approve these plans, parking for 3 spaces. Okay. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, can I just say on the 25% issue, it is important, but sometimes you can have quite a small area and you can have quite a light flowering cherry tree or something like that, which gives verticality and adds to the street scene, whereas you can have something twice as wide, which is full of very lovely flowers, which don't really add to the street scene. So you can, in quite small areas, get verticality, which gives a wider amenity value sometimes. So it's just in the landscaping, I think. Okay, so
the proposal is, the report is before us, subject to the suggestion that we delegate to the head of planning rewording of the car park layout and drop curb layout. Forgive me, condition, whichever that is. Condition 3. Councillor Lavery.
I think Councillor Yarrow did propose, I think, in which case I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Have a show of hands, please, on this one. It's unanimous again. Thank you. Agenda item 10, land forming part of 21 Victoria Avenue, Hillingdon.
Thank you, Chairman. Members may recall not very long ago we had an application for number 23 across the road from there for a new dwelling to the side, or extensions and conversion. In that particular case, there was a considerable amount of space left to the side. In this particular case, the application comes to within a metre of the boundary, and your officers feel that the infilling of that space to that level is unacceptable, and therefore we are recommending refusal on that basis. Members will know that we've won a number of appeals on similar situations, so we're confident that this refusal is soundly based. Thank you, Chairman.
Plans?
Oh, sorry. Just go through the plans. As you can see, the pinch point is to the front, and the visibility, obviously, as you come down Richmond Avenue, is that you'll see the front particularly. So that's where the problems lie. That's the existing and the proposed elevations, the existing layout and the existing plans. That's just looking up Richmond Avenue to the rear. This is the property to the rear, and that's the site itself. Thank you.
Councillor Lavery?
I think the officer refusal reason expresses it all, so I would have no hesitation in moving that.
Councillor Dillon, you indicating?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you very much. Show of hands, please, on this one. Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 11, 17 Manor Road.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application that relates to 17 Manor Road, which is in 2 flats, and there is investigations into other alleged uses that are going on at the moment, and members may well get off enforcement reports, but this application relates to 2 outbuildings at the rear of the site. The garden has been subdivided or is proposed to be subdivided for each flat, and each flat is proposed to have an outbuilding measuring approximately 26 square metres. In terms of it, if you total up, 52 square metres would be quite a substantial sized outbuilding, but your officers consider that 26 square metres separated as two buildings is considered acceptable in this instance, and reasonable storage for the flats that are there at the moment. So we are recommending approval on that basis. These are the proposed plans, and that's the property. The enforcement, there was an enforcement notice served regarding the front porch and extension. That has been removed, as members can see, and there is the rear of the site. So, and these are the properties to the rear. Oops. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. If I may ask a question on this one that's just come to my mind, and that is looking at the site location plan. This plot doesn't appear to clearly be a double plot. And my question is, would officers be recommending a 52 square metre outbuilding on another property in this road that hadn't been subdivided?
A 52 square metre outbuilding is not something that we would normally recommend, but we do recommend, or we do allow outbuildings of some substantial size for a single property. This is two properties as such, so in this particular case they are separated. There is a gap between the two, and for that reason we are saying that it is acceptable. If it was one combined building, we might look at it and say it's not acceptable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Arson Olsen. Colleagues. Councillor Labour.
I'll propose officer recommendations.
Councillor Yarrow, you wish to come in?
I was going to ask a legal question, which is the amount of problems that this address has given this council over the years. How much weighting can you put on the past history when you're now faced with what could be potentially two beds in sheds, and which I think is exactly what's being built?
Thank you.
Thank you. I would say that the history can be taken into account once it's proportionate to what we're looking at. It has to tie into the facts before us. We can't predict what's going to happen, but should there be unlawful activity such as accommodation in the two sheds, the enforcement process is there to investigate that and take the appropriate action should that be the case.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Chairman. Following on from that, given that these outbuildings are purely for storage, could we specify that the windows are removed and there's just a door?
I'll hand that one to the officers for comment.
I'm not sure we can necessarily treat these too differently than we would any other outbuilding. We wouldn't normally go that far. The key thing on this one is we've got is condition 5, which basically is the condition that's in place to prevent these becoming beds and sheds, and that does cover living room, bedroom, kitchen, separate unit for accommodation, or for any business purposes. So it is quite all-encompassing condition. So, I mean, what I would say, as long as members are happy with the condition 5, I don't think you can take it, any further.
Okay. You formally proposed this one. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Show of hands, please, on this. That's everybody. Thank you. Okay, we are now going to move into part 2 of the meeting, so I must ask you to leave